There's just something so fun and satisfying about making a granny square. I ran out of yarn. Hey y'all, it's Terry from yokieB.com. Welcome to my channel where I share crochet and knitting patterns and tutorials as well as finished projects and lots of fun fiber things. I am so excited to share my finished Corrine Cardi with you. This is my sweater from the spring 2022 Knit Collage make along. It was such a fun project to make and I was really excited about making it, but honestly I love it even more than I could have imagined. So let's dive into the details. Started my Corrine Cardi on the 6th of May and I finished on the 19th, so it took me about 2 weeks to finish. Y'all, I'm super excited to get started on my Knit Collage Make Along project. I'm a little bit behind as far as starting when everybody else did, but I'm super excited to get started. I did lay out my colors to try to kind of figure out how I wanted them to go before I started my granny squares, but I think I'm just gonna kind of wing it and kind of eclectically put the colors together, so we will see how it goes. If you guys have been following along with me for a while, then you know how much I love bright colors. If you are new to the channel, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here and I would love it if you wanted to stick around for some super fun crochet and knitting content. But this time around with the make along, I wanted to go with something a little bit different. I am always drawn to bright colors. I love neons and bold colors and just anything bright. I also really love neutrals, but I just don't ever reach for them. I don't know why. It's just bright colors always catch my attention, but then sometimes I find myself like needing a neutral and I'm like, I really should have chosen this in a neutral. Neutrals are just classic and something you always need, but I am definitely a color person. So I wanted to go with something a little bit different for my Corrine Cardi, and this fatigue green combo really stood out to me. This is my third time working with the Serenity Boucle yarn. I've used lots of the other colors, some of the neons and the peony I've used before. I've really been into forest green and army green and just green in general lately, and so I was just really drawn to this fatigue green combo. So I was excited to pick something a little bit different for myself and have something a little bit more neutral in my wardrobe. So the fatigue green combo came with, of course, the Serenity Boucle yarn in fatigue green. Also came with 2 wildflower mini kits, one in Midnight Rider, which included the Midnight Amber color, the sage green, the tribal, hibiscus flower, and lotus petal. And it also came with the Blush Happy kit, which included petal, tribal, sienna, Sierra redwood, and beatnik in the wildflower colors. And then also it came with just a single wildflower yarn, and that was in Dusty Fleur. I hadn't made a granny square in a while, and so it was just so satisfying to make a granny square. I don't know if you're like me, but there's just something so fun and satisfying about making a granny square. Comment below if you know what I mean. I don't know if it's seeing all the colors come together or how quickly they work up or just the way they look. I don't know what it is, but I love a granny square so much. It was really fun to work with this bulky weight yarn and making these granny squares. I just think that they made the cutest granny squares. It has definitely inspired me to work on some more granny square projects very soon. I cannot wait to dive into another one. But honestly, this was just so much fun picking the colors and just deciding how the granny squares would fit together on my sweater. It was just a really fun process. So I am finished with my granny squares. I'm so excited to start putting this sweater together. But as I mentioned before, I just kind of chose colors that would contrast really well. And so I just kind of, as I went, I picked colors that I liked together. I tried to have quite a variety of different colors. Some of them I repeated if I really liked them, like this one I really liked a lot. I just love the pink and the green together. Also kind of the purple and the green together. But I just chose colors that I thought would complement really well together and would just create nice contrast and a lot of visual interest for the sweater. So I cannot wait to start assembling this. I can't decide if I want to block them or not. I kind of don't want to because I just want to get started, but I don't know, we will see. Y'all, I do have a confession to make. I did not check gauge with this sweater, and I know I always recommend checking gauge, and I still recommend it, but sometimes, as I have also mentioned, I just get super excited and I just don't want to check gauge. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I don't have a good excuse or reason. I just wanted to get started on the sweater. So I don't know if it was because it was granny squares or what, but I just figured,
no, I'll be fine. I'm not gonna check gauge.
Well, let me tell you, I ran out of yarn. So it all worked out in the end, and as you can see, I made a little adjustment on the sleeves here. I had some of my leftover peony from my previous knit along project, and so I went ahead and added that to the sleeves. And I was also hoping with blocking in the end that it would add a little bit of length to the sleeves, which thankfully it did. So now it's perfect. I love the fit so much, and I was so glad that I had this extra yarn right here. Honestly, y'all, I cannot believe I ran out of yarn, and as I was getting towards the end, I was like, oh my goodness, I am gonna run out of yarn. And it's so funny, if you knit and crochet, then you know that knitting takes so much less yarn than it does with crochet. And after I had finished the body of the sweater, I was thinking, well, the sleeves are knitted, so maybe I have enough to, I think I had like 3/4 of a skein or a ball of the fatigue green left. And I was like, well, it's knitting, so I think it'll be okay. And it was so hard because as I was getting closer and closer, I was like, well, I need to ration this, so I need to figure out what I need for this sleeve and this sleeve. So I did add that extra in here with the peony, but I didn't have that much of that left over either, so I sort of had to figure that out too and do a little bit here and then a little bit here on this sleeve. So I had needles on both sleeves going as I was doing the sweater, and it was just kind of a mess. I made the cuffs just slightly longer also because I did have plenty of extra wildflower yarn. It was just kind of funny and just solidifies the fact that checking gauge always helps. It's always the right thing to do, and it always pays off when you take the time to do it. It's just the truth of it. Y'all, this lighting is so crazy. I apologize. It's in and out, cloudy and sunny, so please bear with me. Going back to talking about the sleeves, I was so excited about this cardigan because I love the mixture of crocheting and knitting. I love crocheting and knitting so much, both of them equally, I think. If I knit for a while, then I miss crocheting. If I crochet for a while, I miss knitting. I just love them both so much. And so I was very excited to have both of them in this sweater. It was such a fun sweater to make because of that reason. And I think it was such a cute idea to mix the two. I always love mixing knitting and crochet. I actually have a pattern, the All About the Yarn pillow, that has a knitted front and back and then a crocheted border, and I just love the mixture of textures, and just the more texture the better in my opinion. So this sweater was like the perfect project because once I had finished the crocheted body, then I was ready for the sleeves that were knitted, and so it was just such a satisfying project to make. I just love all of the details in this sweater. When I was trying to decide what to do to add a little bit of extra length to the sleeves, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted just a stripe. I thought that might be kind of too harsh. I do think it turned out pretty good, and I do like the way that it turned out. I also wondered about making the sleeves like the color transition in the Soulshine Cardi. That was a bonus pattern in this make along. I thought that would be really cute, but I had already done the sleeves a couple of times and I was just kind of ready to be finished with it. But I think that that would have been a cool option too, because I think it would have helped with it being a little more delicate of a transition. I mean, I do like this stripe, and especially because it's the same yarn, but I just think that might have added a little bit extra to it. I am happy with the way it turned out, but it's funny because I really kind of wanted them to be just green, but I was definitely not about to take out the entire cardigan just to add a little bit of length to the sleeves. So I also think it's unique, which to me, I always love a quirky detail. I always love a little something extra added, and so this is kind of like my signature on this sweater, which I think is kind of fun as well. So I do have to say, in the blocking process, it probably added a couple of inches to the sleeves, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm very happy with the end result, and y'all, it just lays so beautifully after being blocked. That is also something that I always suggest next to checking gauge, which I didn't do for this sweater, but blocking makes all the difference. It really does. It just helps the stitches relax, helps everything kind of lay more comfortably. It just looks so much more polished after it's blocked. And going back to running out of yarn, I also needed to add a crocheted border to this. I really wanted it to be green. I wanted it to be green also, but I did not have enough yarn. So I was like, what am I gonna do? I did try the peony, and I just wasn't really happy with the contrast. I didn't want it to have that much contrast. For some reason, it just didn't look right to me. I did like the way it looked even without the crocheted border, but I also wanted to try, because I had so much of the wildflower yarn left over, I wanted to try that as well. I went ahead and did it with the Dusty Fleur, and I really like the way that it turned out because it doesn't have a ton of contrast, because as opposed to like the granny squares, which I wanted to have a ton of contrast, I didn't want as much for the border. After I tried out the peony, I just didn't think that contrast was what you needed with it. And so I was very excited with how the Dusty Fleur turned out, and I did change up the border just a little bit and did a slip stitch border instead of what they called for. I just love a crocheted slip stitch border. I don't know what it is about that stitch, but I just think it looks so cool and polished. You do have to be careful about doing a slip stitch border because it will get tight really fast. So you have to make sure your slip stitches are super loose, but I just love the way that it looks. It gives like this really cool like chain stitch look. I just really love it. Overall, I am so happy with my cardigan. I love how it turned out. It was such a fun project. I always enjoy being a part of the knit along, or actually make along. I keep saying knit along, but it is a make along this time because of the crochet, which I think is so cool because I know so many crocheters want to be a part of it too, and it was such a fun project. So you know, I highly recommend the make along / knit along. Knit Collage does one in the spring and one in the fall, so I'll definitely update you when it's time for the fall make along. I do have another project with this make along that I want to dive into. I just haven't had time to do it yet with all my other projects. It is the Brioche Grow With Me cardigan, and I did mention it in a previous video, but I'm taking a sweater apart that I had made to make this brioche cardigan. I've never done brioche before, and so I'm excited for that challenge, and I cannot wait to dive into that, and I will take you guys along for the whole process. Thank you guys so much for checking out the details of my Corrine Cardi with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspired you to start whatever that next project is that is on your list. Maybe it's a granny square, maybe a garment, something super fun. So I hope it was inspiring. If you have any questions at all about this cardigan or knit collage or being a part of the make along or the knit along, please just leave it in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!